Hi, if you're watching this, it's probably because you've bought one of my pumpkin bomb kits. This kit is quite easy to put together if you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, hopefully this video makes it easy for you as well. So to start, this kit doesn't take a lot of knowledge. It's quite easy to put together. It's a bit time intensive though. It's going to take you a little while, especially if you haven't done something like this before. So the first thing you're going to want to do is ignore everything else. You're going to want to take the 8 white LEDs and this black piece, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to insert all the LEDs, but you're going to want to make sure to do it in a way, see if I can show this here. Oh, I don't think it will. There we go. Insert it in a way where all the longer pins of the LEDs are on the outside all the way around, so they're kind of pointing inwards, and you'll see why I do this in a second. So once you've done that, it's going to be very simple. Next step is you're going to bend down all the pins. So I'm going to start off with the long ones. I'm going to bend it in between the pins of the next one. I'll show you what I mean. So you're going to want to bend the long pin in between the middle 2 pins, so that when you bend the next long pin down, it overlaps and almost pinches down onto the last one. You're going to want to do this all the way around, like so. Make sure you get it in the middle until the last 2, or last one, I guess, long pin, you're going to leave. You're going to do the same thing with the smaller legs. However, you're going to do this on the inside, so to the left of it, so it can pinch down on it again, all the way around. And there. And then you should have this nicely pinched down ring. And this makes it easier for us to solder each part together, and don't have to use extra wires, and then we can just send power to these 2 pins and they should all light up. Once you've done that, you're going to want to solder them all down. Make sure you don't have any shorts. You don't want to damage any of the LEDs, but it should be pretty simple. And after you've done that, you should end up with something like this, with them all soldered down. And if I were to put some power there, they should all light up. The reason you do it like this is because instead of soldering the positive to negative pins, if you did it that way, you'd lose power over each LED. So doing it this way spreads the power evenly, meaning they'll all be the same brightness. So the next step, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take, if I can get it, this piece and one of your green LEDs, and you're just going to want to glue it down with super glue, hot glue, whatever, like so, like that. This piece diffuses the green light of this and makes this whole piece glow. So you're going to want to glue them together like that, and once you do that, you should have something like this. Just the piece, this, even here I drilled a little hole. The newer kits will have that hole printed in that you just slot the LED into and glue down. So you should end up like something like that. And then you're going to want to just push that in there, a little bit of glue, and you should end up with something like this, which is all soldered there. And then you've got this pin and this pin, or these pins and these pins from these LEDs, which you're next going to solder together. Right, so in this step, you've now ready to do some more soldering. We're going to be soldering this ring of LEDs to this singular one, so that we can then just send power to this one and have them all light up. We're going to do this the same way we did before. We're going to have it in series, in parallel, so that you don't lose any power between the two. So to do this, you're going to want to grab some wire. Wire comes in the kit. It doesn't really matter what color you use. For this, just to make it easier on camera, I'll use red and black. However, sometimes the kit will come with, you know, it might be yellow. A lot of the time it's green wire. But yes, so you're going to want to get your bits of wire. It helps if you have someone else to help you or a pair of helping hands. If you don't know what helping hands are, they're just crocodile clips on arms that you can move around. I actually have some, so I'm going to grab mine. These are the helping hands I was talking about. Like I said, it's just a pair of crocodile clips on some articulating arms so that you can, you know, grab your bit of wire in there while you're soldering to it, and it's held in place. You don't have to try and awkwardly do it on a table or something. So I'm just gonna go ahead and strip both sides of the wire. You can do this with anything really. If you don't have wire snippers, like here I'm using wire cutters. If you don't have wire cutters or wire strippers, you can use, you know, you can use a pair of scissors if you're careful. I've done that a lot of times. But also, you know, you can get some cheap wire cutters for very cheap off eBay or Amazon. If you're planning on doing kits like this in the future, it's very handy to have the correct tools. So now I've got that stripped on either end, I'm going to take my soldering iron and turn it on, get it up to temperature. And while that's getting up to temperature, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other one and just put it to the side for now. Once you strip both ends, I like to grab the metal wire and twist to get it all neat and twisted together. Do that on both. Right, so this isn't going to be a soldering tutorial, but you know, I'll give you the rundown anyway. Get your soldering iron. Mine's in an awkward place because of the plug socket, but you're going to then just go ahead and add a nice bit of solder to it, like so. Do that to both of them. There we go. And then I can go ahead and get my other wire and do the exact same thing. Once you've done that, we're going to be moving on to this now. And so the way to know which one's the positive and which one's the negative is the negative pin will be the shorter. On LEDs, when they come, they'll always have a longer leg and a shorter leg. That's one of the ways. The other way is when you look through the LED itself and you look at the contacts on the inside, the negative one will have a little flag on it. So the little flag on the inside is the negative, in case you buy some LEDs and they're the same length. So I'm now going to try and solder the black wire, which is negative, to the shorter of the two pins. I'm going to try and get it as low down here and here as possible, so that I can snip that off and use the rest of these to attach other wires to. Once you've got them all soldered down, you can just go ahead and snip these pins, that went flying, low down, so there's no pins sticking up past the solder points. Keep these ones though, and as you can see, if I then attach it to a battery, you can see they're all on, and they're all lit up nice and bright. So the next step is to solder on the other green LED to this. You're going to do it in the same way as you did before. Now, if you wanted to, you could solder it directly pin to pin. I like to use a bit of wire just a little bit. You don't need a lot. Like so. This is probably more than I need, to be honest. But for purposes of the video, I will, use a bit extra to demonstrate. So you're going to want to do the exact same thing with your helping hands and the wire. Solder both sides. There we go. And like I said, I'm then just going to solder this to the LED. Now, the helpful thing about having a pair of helping hands is you can attach the LED in one side and pinch the wire in the other arm, and then rotate it into place so you don't have to hold it at all, like so. And then I can just use that bit of solder and it's soldered together. Nice and easy, very helpful. I've cut these wires at awfully different lengths, but it's fine. There we go. That's the LED soldered together. Right, that's going to go onto there. This bit, I like to use some heat shrink tubing on. So this comes in the kit as well. I like to trim these pins down. Like so. Slide over this tubing. All the way down to the base of the LED. On both pieces. There we go. Makes it nice and neat. Just prevents any sort of shorting that might happen. The way this is designed is it shouldn't really short at all. I don't see how it would. But just in case, it's nice to be safe. Right, and then I'm just going to go ahead and solder these down just like that, leaving more room on top because we're going to still need to solder other things to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this real quick. Get a little bit of solder on the soldering iron. There we go. Now that LED is soldered on, it will also light up. Cool. Okay, so you can go ahead and move this whole thing to the side now. And what you're going to be working on next is this piece and this piece. You'll need the switch for this and the battery pack. However, the switch and battery pack we don't need right now. And the only other bits you'll need are the screws and the threaded inserts. They're these little brass pieces and the little screws. I'm going to go ahead, screw these in around halfway. Now for this bit, you're definitely going to need some pliers or something like that. And you'll need some sort of heat, whether that be from a lighter or a match, anything that can heat up the metal. Because what we're going to do is we're going to heat up this brass insert and we're going to push it into the holes on this piece. And this is going to hold it all together in the end. So you're going to want to get some sort of heat. For this I'll use a lighter. Normally I use my Dremel soldering iron, but I'll show you both ways. So like I said, you can just use a lighter, or what I will normally use is my Dremel torch. and I'll show you. So you're going to want to take your brass insert with the screw on it. That's how I'm holding it. I'm going to heat it up. You don't have to heat it up very much, just a bit, like so, and then I'm going to go ahead and push it into the side until it's flush. You can, you know, move it in, maneuver it a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to make sure it's straight, just like that. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Nice and inserted. And then I'm going to do the next one. So I get my lighter, heat it up, like I said, for about 3 seconds or so, and then you can just go ahead and push it in like that. Make sure it's straight again. There you go, you see, directly inserted, just like the other one. Once you've done that, you can put it to the side for a minute, let it cool off. Don't play with the screws or anything, or you'll burn yourself. And you can bring the battery pack over and you can snip it down to length. So the positive one, you're going to want to be slightly longer than the negative one. So I'll normally pinch the negative one off around that long. I don't know, say 4 centimeters or so. And then maybe give the positive one an extra 1.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters. So this wire you'll use again in a bit, or if you have enough wire left over from the kit itself, I would recommend using that. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and strip both ends, and you can go ahead and put that back to the side. And hopefully your pieces have cooled down now. Mine have. I'm going to go ahead and unscrew the screws. So once they're cooled down, you're going to want this piece, and we're going to attach these together. One thing to pay attention to is the rectangle holes at the bottom need to line up. If they don't, this isn't going to work. The other thing is, once they're lined up, also make sure that these holes are lined up with the slot, see-through slot. As on the other piece, that's where you're going to want the screw to go through, and the slots line up. So to do this, I'm going to use hot glue. I'd suggest hot glue. Let it get nice and hot. I find with super glue, sometimes depending on the glue you use, one, it's hard to get a good bond unless you're using a more jelly kind. I normally have the liquid kind. And two, it can leave like fume marks, white fume marks all over it, and then you're gonna have to paint on top of it, and that'll be a pain for you. So the way I do this is I like to put a bit of glue on every other arm here. I normally do it on the arms that are less attached, so this one, all the way around, and I'll go ahead and push that in, line it up, and let it dry. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. Right, simple as that. There's the reason I use hot glue is because obviously it can fill any gap in between the two pieces a lot easier. However, it does spill out a little bit, but that's fine. Once it dries, I just go in with a little craft knife or anything really that's you know, sharp enough. You just cut it out, and then you can't even tell it was there. So that's that bit done. You can glue the top bit now, which I'll do. Unfortunately, my top bit broke a little bit, but I'm just going to be able to glue that back on. So to put this top bit on, you're going to want to make sure that you have it round the right way, as these two pieces need to line up. The correct way to line them up is like that. So you got the bigger bit there to the smaller bit, and the bigger bit there to the smaller bit, all the way around. But, you know, you don't want bigger to bigger. You can do it that way if you want, less accurate. So yeah, you want that sort of like zigzag. And you're just going to glue it in like that, but you need to pay attention to the holes on this. So what I like to do is throw that on that and then figure out, okay, so I know that the smaller bit needs to go to the right of that hole, or the left, depending on what way you look at it, and the bigger bit to the other side. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the exact same thing I did to that one to this one. And you've got your pieces. Like I said, I need to fix that one. That should be pretty easy. I'll even do that now to let it dry. There we go, all fixed. Can't even tell it was broken in the first place. There we go. Next thing you're going to want to do is just let that dry, and then we're going to be doing some more soldering. So you got this piece. I'm going to now solder on the negative of the battery pack to the negative of here. I'm not going to solder on the positive side. We need that to solder onto the switch. So I'm going to get my solder, and I'm going to just tin the end of this. What I mean by that is I'm just going to put a little bit of solder onto the end of it, just like we did with the other cables, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my helping hands again. Just like that, and I'm literally just going to solder it onto the LED leg, like so. There we go. Next thing we're going to want to do is move that to the side and get your switch part, the bottom part. And you're going to want to get your switch and that piece of cable from earlier. Like I said, I'm going to use a bit more new cable. If you have some leftover cable in the pack, awesome. If not, that cable works just fine. The only reason why I wouldn't suggest using that if you can't, it's just because it's a bit thinner. Doesn't make a difference though. So I'm going to go ahead and solder both these ends up. Next thing I'm going to do is solder this to any one of the pins. It doesn't actually matter where you solder this right now. So I'm just going to solder it to the middle pin here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Get a bit of solder on that middle pin. Just go ahead and solder it on there, like so. Next thing you're going to want to do, now this is the bit you have to make sure to do right. You take this piece and you take the positive from the battery pack. You're going to want to thread it through this hole, inside to out. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of solder onto it. I'm going to thread this through one of the holes on the switch, and because I soldered this to the middle bit, it doesn't matter where I put this one. So I'm just going to go to the side and try and thread it through that hole if I can. Yeah, just like that. Solder that down. So now you've soldered them onto the switch, you're going to go ahead and thread this back through the hole, if I can. There we go. And the switch should then fit in there quite nicely. Now these bits here on the switch, I like to just push down on so they follow the curve a bit. Next thing, you're going to want to bring this in. You're going to solder this now to that pin. This is going to go to the positive pin, and that'll be all the soldering done once you've done that. Right, so now that's all soldered together, you're going to want to glue that switch in at the bottom. I'm going to use my hot glue gun again. Just going to spew in a hefty amount of glue down at the bottom there. Not only is this going to hold the switch in place, this is also going to protect the wires from that solder joint from breaking, as these switches the solder joint to the switch is very small, and the battery pack, especially the wires, are quite thin. So you're going to just let that dry, and while I do that, I'm just going to start bending these wires of this battery a little bit, like that, just so it sits in at a bit of an angle. Alright, I'm just going to let this dry and then I'll be right back. Okay, so that glue down there, dry. One thing I'm going to do that you don't have to do, it just improves the look of the final product, is these white LEDs. Obviously when they're lit up, they both shine forwards and backwards, and we don't really want that white light coming in to the bomb itself, otherwise it kind of, it diffuses, don't know what the right saying there is, but it lessens the green, because it, bright white shining in makes the green less bright, less nice green. So what I do is I paint over the back of it with a bit of nail varnish. This is dark nail varnish. I just picked this up from, I don't know, Boots or something. It was really cheap. And the reason I use nail varnish over something like acrylic paint, let's say, is acrylic paint will take a while to dry, and I have to make a lot of these on such a quick turnaround that this dries so quickly, and the coverage is good. I feel like with acrylic paint you need to go into it a few times, whereas this, it's just like dab all over it, and it's good. I also use this to cover up these wires, so it's kind of an ultimate win. But I'm not going to do that right now. What you want to do first is you're going to want to glue this into place in here. So to do that is I just put a little dab there of hot glue, push it in, because we're going to be putting a lot more hot glue on top of it to keep it in place, so you don't need to go over the top right now. So I just do a little dab there and a little dab on the other side, and then you just want to line it up, and it should, if I can line it up, push right in like that. Beautiful. And that's your front of your pumpkin bomb done. So this is where it gets a bit awkward because of the wire length. So I'm going to try and get this on camera. Move my hot glue gun out the way for now, and we'll see if I can actually get it on the camera here. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with this nail varnish remover, and I'm just gonna, don't know if you can see that, but I'm painting over the tracks and the LEDs. And like I said, this is just going to stop the white light from coming backwards into the pumpkin bomb and messing with our green LEDs, and it also kind of coats it a bit. We are going to be pouring hot glue near enough all over these. I guess that's more of an optional thing to do though. I like to do it because it secures everything in place a bit, but you don't actually have to do that yourself. There you go. Nice bit of nail varnish all over it, and it should be good. Right, so once that's gone and dried, I'm going to take my hot glue and I'm going to glue all the way around this seam between the outer white shell and the inner black bit. I'm just going to pour hot glue in there just to trap it all together, and I'm also going to put a bit of hot glue over this middle couple of wires. You can also bend them down if you want. As long as they're covered in hot glue, they shouldn't make a short. So now it's all dry. There's only one thing left to do, which is put the batteries in and to put it together. So the batteries in this, I get asked this a lot actually, how to put the batteries in. There's two little screws on the back. Ignore them. You don't need to take them apart. You just pull and the battery back should open up. Now the batteries you're going to want are these CR 2032s, I think. Yeah. And to put them in, the back one you're going to want with the graphic side up, and the front one you're going to want with the graphic side down. Or if you look at it that way, positive side down on the front, positive side up on the back. You're going to want close together. One important thing you need to make sure is there's a little switch on the battery pack. Make sure that's turned on before you put it all together, otherwise it won't work. Right, next thing to do is to line it all up, get your little screws and screw them in. Right, so I got all the screws in, and moment of truth, turn it on, and there we go. You got your lit up pumpkin bomb. That's it. Hope that helped, and good luck with your kits. If you have any other problems, send me a message on Etsy and we'll try and fix that for you. Cheers, thanks for watching.